JBL seems to be lining up some great TWS earphones, but if you're in the market for any of these, I'm going to be pitting them against one another so that you can understand better which one is specifically for you. If you would like to see any of these in-depth reviews, I will leave their links down in the description below. So let's jump straight in with how these are built. JBL sticks to a good quality of unboxing with all of these earphones, despite each of them being in slightly different price segments. The 230NC, however, comes with a slightly larger box. This is part reason because the earbuds themselves are not placed in the case. Surprisingly, each of these stand up against one another despite being from various price points. JBL seems to have a good eye for their quality control when it comes to their finish. The Wave Buds are the only set of earphones here that don't get a lid for its case, making it prone to picking up lint or dust whenever it's in your pocket or bag. The Wave Beam and 230NC are almost identical when it comes to their construction of the case, but have small differences. Like the 230NC's case has a flat section moving across the perimeter, so you can stand it on your desk quite easily, whereas the Wave Beam's case is more rounded. The Wavebeam case also has its USB-C charging point right under the case, whereas the 230NC has its USB-C charging point behind it. Another key difference between the two cases is its spring action. The Wavebeam's lid needs to be pushed almost halfway until it pulls back completely, whereas the 230NC spring pulls back almost immediately when opened. As you would have noticed, the Wavebeam doesn't switch on its earbuds when the lid is opened. Rather, it's built similarly to the Wavebuds, where the buds only come on when plucked out of the case, unlike the 230NC, which wakes up as soon as the lid is opened. The 230NC obviously showing signs that it's a more premium product already with a few things. It also has 3 LED notification lights to let you know how much battery life the case has, whereas the other two only have a single LED that glows red for low battery, orange for medium, and green for high battery levels. Moving on to the earphones. The Wavebuds are the only one without a stem design here, and thanks to that, it has a very sleek design which is small enough to fit quite snug in your ear. I did think this would be uncomfortable for me to use, but it hasn't caused me any discomfort over longer listening sessions. The Wavebeam has a stem design but has a large housing, which has in fact been uncomfortable to use over longer listening sessions on my left ear. I felt this discomfort before with the Realme Buds Air 3 and the Oppo Enco Air 2 Pro. This discomfort can lead to pain over longer listening sessions. The 230NC also comes with a stem design and has a large housing, but surprisingly hasn't caused me any discomfort or pain during longer listening sessions. It is a large set of earphones, but it's not heavy enough for you to feel its weight in your ears. All these earphones have silicone tips which are comfortable to wear, but the only gripe I have with any of these is with the Wavebuds silicone tips, because the section of the ear tip that holds onto the earbuds is soft, making it difficult to swap between tips when placing other sizes on. The Wavebeam and 230NC have a more rigid mount on the ear tips, making this process easier for that very purpose. All of these have Bluetooth version 5.2, have touch controls, and have JBL app support. It's only the JBL 230NC that comes with active noise cancelling, whereas the other two earphones only have passive isolation. The 230's ANC works well enough. It cuts down fan motor noises, AC motor noises, and my studio is close to a busy street, so it does do a good job of cutting down all the engine noises from the busy street outside. Now, if you haven't used active noise cancelling before, the Wavebeam and Wavebud should be fine, but if you have used active noise cancelling, you will find this feature missing with the other two earphones. All of these have similar touch functions in the app, but I've always found JBL's touch functions to be a little limited because you can assign specific things for your earphones to do per side, which locks you into those specific functions only. So if ever you want alternate feature controls, you'll have to go into the app to change that function for the earphones to control. All of these also have a smart audio and video feature in the app. When the smart audio is on, it plays back through the best codec available for better audio quality. And when the smart video is on, it works as a low latency mode. So when it comes to their latency, they are a bit slow to respond when they're on the music mode, but when shifted over to the video mode, they are a bit quicker to respond. In fact, I've had a few people write in and tell me about the 230NC in particular because I found them to be a bit slow, but I think maybe newer generations are a bit quicker to respond than the version I have. The one I have, I bought, I think it was one of the first few batches that came out, whereas I haven't noticed as much of a delay with the Wavebeam and the Wavebud. So that's something to keep in mind if you're into gaming. So let me show you a demo as to how these would respond whether you're gaming or consuming video with these.
Ready? Kill them.
So today I'm paired with the JBL 230NC, and you can also use this method with a whole bunch of other TWS earphones as well. If you are using a wired set of headphones, you can also use this method. So there are a lot of inbuilt apps that in fact include podcast EQs, which this is exactly what it will do to the sound in the mids. Now if you want loudness, I want more richness in the highs, I want more detail in the mids, and I want more bass. So a lot of you will do this. You're going to tweak certain frequencies as per what you want. Now, you're not wrong in thinking this, because essentially this is doing what you want. Low volumes have slightly boosted highs and slightly boosted bass, so that your sound sounds more or less balanced. So you don't have to necessarily crank the volume up to hear these frequencies. But what I would recommend instead, to preserve your hearing and maybe expect a little more longevity on any hardware you're using, whether it's wired or even wireless earphones. What you have most probably realized while operating the EQ setting on your phone is, I'm sure a lot of you have said, hey, I want loudness, I want more richness in the highs, I want more detail in the mids, and I want more bass. So, and speaking about phone calls, this set of earphones has been pretty good in the past, but instead of asking you to go and jump back to another review that I've done, I'm going to head down to the busy street where I normally do all my call tests, just to give you an idea of how well these handle their environmental noise cancelling. So I'm calling from the usual busy street. I normally make a lot of these call tests from, just to give you a sense of what kind of noise these earphones are going to be battling in. There is of course a lot of traffic going on behind me, and there is some construction work behind me as well. So these earphones do have a lot to deal with. So I have been on the camera microphone all this time, just so you get a feel of the noise around me, and I'll switch over to the JBL Wave Buds right about now. So the wavebuds in question specifically have one microphone per earbud. Now this is something I hadn't yet found out when I was doing the initial review, but the JBL website does state that this has one microphone per earbud. I do suspect that these don't have environmental noise cancelling. For one, they only have one microphone per earbud, so there isn't a second microphone really analyzing the rest of the noise, so it can cancel it out with an algorithm. But having said that, these do fairly well when it comes to carrying your voice over clear enough. In fact, at least that's what I felt for the in-depth review I did. But of course, you are sitting in the viewer's seat to see which set of earphones suit you the best. So what I'll do now is I'll shift over from the JBL Wave Buds over to the JBL Wave Beam. So these are of course the JBL Wave Beam that I'm talking to right now, and it will be interesting to see if there is any difference between the two, because this as well only has one microphone per earbud. There is no secondary microphone per earbud to sort of analyze the noise and cancel it out with an algorithm. So don't expect these to do extremely well for environmental noise cancelling. This is pretty much how your voice is going to be carried over to your recipient. So like I said, you are the best reviewer right now. You are sitting in the reviewer seat to see which one of these earphones would suit you best. So this has been the JBL Wave Beam, and I'll shift over to the JBL 230NC. And the biggest difference between this set of earphones and the other two is that this does have two microphones, and in fact even has environmental noise cancelling. So this is perfect for these kind of situations. Now, no doubt this is the busiest kind of situation you can expect to use these kind of earphones in. If you're using these in an environment like in an office or at home where it's not as noisy, these are bound to perform that much better. The same goes for the other two earphones as well. But this, I think, should give you the best and clearest voice carryover to your recipient. So I hope that this call demo has given you a better understanding for these earphones, and I will see you back in the studio. All of these come with dynamic drivers, with the 230NC coming in with the smallest driver at just 6mm. The other two earphones come with 8mm dynamic drivers. And these support SBC and AAC codecs with a frequency response of 20Hz all the way up to 20,000 Hz. On a volume front, I found myself listening to these anywhere between 45 and 50% volume. Now, going beyond that to about 60% does get a little too loud with all of these. If you're matching the volume levels between the Waves and the 230NC, the 230NC does sit slightly louder than the other two. Now, when it comes to listening to these at lower volumes, there is a bit of thinning out that is bound to happen, whereas the 230NC does manage to maintain a little more roundedness than the Waves at about 25 or 30% volume. When it comes to how these perform with soundstage, they are very similar to a whole lot of other TWS earphones. with your soundstage existing within a bubble in your head, and some tones giving you the illusion of coming from slightly further out of them. They all have a dead center phantom channel with a good left and right separation as well. Imaging on these is fairly similar to other TWS earphones in this price range. You cannot expect audiophile levels of detail recovery with these, but the Wavebeam and buds do have a good enough detail recovery so as to enjoy certain nuances in your music. But when it comes to the 230NC in particular, it does have sharper edges. It is finer in its detail recovery, so much so when you do A/B testing between them and the 230NC, the Wavebeam and buds seem to sound a little fuzzy. High frequencies on the Wavebeam and Wavebuds is almost identical, and the 230NC does come through with a little more sparkle. Despite the Wavebuds and Wavebeam having similar drivers, their constructs differ, and so does the opening leading to your ear. The Wavebeam has a rounded cavity and the Wavebuds have an oval cavity. I suspect this could be part reason why this range as well as a few other frequencies are carried over slightly differently. The Wavebeam tends to sound a little more on the sibilant side compared to the Wavebuds. The Wavebuds are a little more forgiving in the higher frequencies, which will let you listen for much longer without fatigue that the Wavebeam can lead to if you're sensitive toward higher frequencies. The 230NC seems to be more enthusiastic than the other two earphones in this region. It's not as sibilant as the Wavebeam, but I can see it bothering some people if they're sensitive to higher frequencies. But this is something that can be corrected with a little EQ tuning. Listening to the new Radicals, you get what you give. It's got the typical 90s drum beat going on, with the snare and cymbals clashing throughout this energetic track. The Wavebeam isn't the most enjoyable sounding with this track, but the Wavebuds and 230NC seem to help stir up a little bit of nostalgia. The Wavebuds are a bit warmer sounding than the Wavebeam and are easier on the ear in this range. I didn't think I'd prefer the Wavebuds over the Wavebeam in this region, but here we are, with the Wavebuds and 230NC doing quite well here. Mid frequencies are presented slightly differently between the Wavebuds and Wavebeam despite having a similarly sized driver, and the 230NC exists as a separate entity altogether. The Wavebuds tend to push this range across to you in a more natural sounding tone than the Wavebeams, which tend to make vocals sound a bit thin and more on the nasal side. They stand up well by themselves but seem to fall short here when you do a little A/B testing between the two earphones. The 230NC has terrific presence here. It's got more energy here than the other two earphones. Everything from vocals to instruments come through with purpose and authority, almost like an older brother showing how it's done to his younger siblings. Listening to Dave Matthews Band's Ants Marching, the Wavebuds hold true to this range, sounding more natural than the Wavebeams for certain. It's got a more rounded delivery, making it more enjoyable to listen to. Then the 230NC is very clearly in a higher price bracket than the other two here. The mid-range is more forward and is part of the rest of the music instead of sounding like it's being lost in some form. The way it handles its mid-range is one of the reasons why I preferred it to the Nothing Ear 1 when I compared the two. It's been well tuned for certain. And yet again, the low frequencies are not presented in the same way between the Wavebuds and Wavebeam despite being a similar driver. The Wavebuds have good enough body in this range, more than good enough to pop into your ears, go for a run or gym and get a kick from the bass to encourage you to push a little harder for your workouts. The Wavebeam, on the other hand, isn't quite cut out for giving you that rush. I don't see this being great for EDM. The Wavebuds do a much better job with that genre. The 230NC walks into this arena as if it's a pro athlete compared to these buds. It's got better definition and body and handles this range without any strain, really showcasing how you should never judge a set of earphones just by the size of its driver. Listening to the Chainsmokers' Don't Let Me Down, the Wavebuds handle this range with respectable bass delivery. It is enjoyable and I see it working well for your workout sessions. I think the Wavebeam is better suited to lighter music because there isn't much of a kick in this range that should exist for a more fun listening experience. The 230NC is able to throw bass at you in an effortless manner compared to how the other two earphones sound. Despite being able to push as much bass out in this track, it's able to keep the mids untouched and clear from distortion. JBL really has tuned these well. I'd say they're a great all-round set of earphones on a sound front. One thing to keep in mind is that all of these do have EQ access in the JBL app. Now, you do have presets you can choose from, but you also do have a manual option as well. So if you do want to tweak the highs to be a little softer for the bright sounding earphones, you can always do that. But there's only so much you can do with an EQ before hitting distortion. So I have done a video about how to EQ some JBL earphones. So feel free to give that a look. So to sum up, on a build front, I think all of these are very well put together. In fact, if you were to look at all of them without knowing the price ranges, really, you'd think that the Wave Buds are in the same league as the JBL 230NC, because JBL definitely has very good quality control when it comes to the build and construction of the earphones. I'm really happy that JBL has been sticking to a matte finish, because I've never really liked the glossy finish on earphones and their cases, because they tend to look very old within a few weeks. But this is the way to go. In fact, I've had the JBL 230NC maybe for almost a year now, and it's fared pretty well. The scuffs and scratch don't show too badly on this. It has aged fairly gracefully. When it comes to the features, I can't really complain about much, because these things work well. I've not really had issues with the touch controls functioning over time, but maybe I don't like the fact that I'm locked into a specific feature set when it comes to controlling the music or calls and so on. And another thing that I have missed out with these is in-ear detection. So I do like the fact that you can take out some earphones and it pauses automatically. None of these do that, which was okay for A/B testing, because when I'm swapping between earphones, I hardly want to keep playing and pausing from my phone. So this was quite convenient for this specific scenario, but I would have preferred if at least the 230NC did have in-ear detection. On a sound front, I think all of these are targeted at slightly different people, because if you're looking for something you can pop into your ears for a run and you want a little more bass, I think the Wave Buds can suit you perfectly fine. I wouldn't recommend the Wave Beam for that, because I think they're catered more towards somebody who wants a lighter listening music, say things like acoustic music or jazz, blues, things that are lighter and not bass heavy. If you're into classical music, it can make more sense. Now, the accentuation in the highs and the upper mids do give it the illusion of having a little more clarity. So I can see people enjoying some classical music on these on the go, but obviously minus the finer details. So both are not exactly the same sounding despite having a similar size driver. Then the 230NC, I'd say, is a good all-rounder, because I think it's going to keep everybody happy, especially on the side of imaging. Its detailed recovery compared to the other two is quite nice. I've quite enjoyed it. In fact, I did find this to sound much fuller sounding than the Nothing earphones when I did do a comparison between the two. It is a more enjoyable set of earphones. The Nothings, in fact, felt like this, felt kind of flat in the bass region when it came to the JBLs, despite having a driver that's almost double the size of these. So these do sound good. It's not that they're a slouch at all. But the one thing to keep in mind before you bite the bullet, or should I say commit to having the 230NCs, I have had a few people write into me in the comment sections telling me that shortly after buying the earphones or maybe a few weeks after this, one of the earbuds would stop charging. So they'd have to take it to the service center, and the people at the service center said, we just have to clean it up and it should be as good as new. And the same people have come back with the same problem to the service center. Now, I did think this was initially a first batch issue, but it turns out it's not, because I have got maybe one or two more comments about the same thing happening fairly recently. Just a few days ago, I got these comments. So now, luckily, however, I haven't faced this issue. It's possible that maybe some sweat and grime does get stuck on the connector under the earphone, on the pins that connect to the charging point. So getting it cleaned regularly should help you avoid having this problem. But at the same time, being turned away from a service center isn't exactly a very nice feeling. So this could be a design flaw with the 230NC. Then again, this could be a small number of people who are facing it. But if you are willing to take the risk and bite the bullet and get these, it's worthwhile keeping this in mind and knowing that you have to keep those connectors clean so that you don't face the same issue. So all in all, would I recommend these? Well, I would recommend each of them depending on your budget, of course, and depending on what kind of sound you're wanting to go for. Now, I personally really like the 230NC, and I wouldn't mind the headache of keeping it clean, because it does sound that much more superior than these other two. Plus, you get the active noise cancelling as well. And of course the environmental noise cancelling. If you've not seen that section in the call chapter to see how well each of these earphones do in a call setting, if that's important to you, feel free to jump back to that chapter. But coming to how much these cost, well, at the time of recording this video at least, the JBL Wave Buds have an MRP of 3,999, but they have a selling price of 2,997. The JBL Wave Beam has an MRP of 4,999, but is being sold for 3,497. and the JBL 230NC has an MRP of 7,999, but it's being sold for 5,498. So if you would like to buy any of these, I will leave their link down below in the description for you. So if you do have any more questions about these earphones, please feel free to leave them down in the comment section below. I usually get back to comments reasonably quickly. And if you would like to see the in-depth reviews, I will leave them in the description below, and they've got a lot more detail than my comparison video does. So please feel free to watch that. So I hope you found this video helpful and informative, and I hope I've helped you make some sort of purchase decision. If you would like to support the channel, I'm sure you know exactly how to. But of course, thank you for tuning into Paul's POV for some sound advice.